Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. Today, we're actually going to be going over new polling that my pollster that we sponsor here on the channel, SoCal Strategies, conducted for us in the month of January. As you all know, President Trump just got inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States, and he's already taken a lot of actions through executive order, as well as declassifying the JFK, MLK, and RFK files. He's done a lot of executive action on the border and many other things. And we decided let's go ahead and do polling on his approval, a couple other people's approval ratings, looking at certain issues. So we're going to be kind of going over everything today here. And it's going to be a little bit of a shorter episode, but we'll go ahead and show you guys all the results from this polling data that we got. We will be leaving a link in the description down below, a GoFundMe link, which you guys can donate to for polling that we may do in the future. And we're going to be kind of showing something at the end as well as to why fundraising for that's going to be very, very important. But let's go ahead and switch to the article here. And it says here, Trump takes office at his strongest position ever. New On Point Politics / SoCal Strategies poll finds. So we see here, after being inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States yesterday, which it's been a couple days already, Donald Trump holds a plus 13 job approval, 49 to 36%. So this is insane because Donald Trump got about 49% of the popular vote, but Kamala Harris got like 48%, and his disapproval was still kind of high for the most part. But ever since he got inaugurated, a bunch of people who disapproved of the president are now kind of in the unsure column and maybe reevaluating their assessment of the new president. Methodology: the SoCal Strategies national poll of 742 U.S. adults was conducted on January 21st using Syntherum online panel. The survey was sponsored by On Point Politics. We see here, optimistic nation. 35% of Americans say the nation is on the right track, with 49% saying it's on the wrong track, which is a drastic uptick from the -40 seen in most surveys last year. So even though you see about 35% of Americans saying there's a lot more wrong track than right track, it's way better than what we've been seeing even in earlier polling where it was like in the low 20s when Biden was actually, the president. The optimism is propelled by a positive view of both Donald Trump +2 personal favorable, which we did his job approval and personal favorable rating. And J.D. Vance is also up 1 point in favorability rating. We see here the support for the TikTok ban, which we briefly covered in the last podcast. 37% of Americans support banning the social media platform TikTok, while 39% oppose the ban. When broken down by age, an astounding 67% of 18 and 29-year-olds oppose the ban, with just 23% supporting it, while those over 65 of age years old support the ban by a 29-point margin. So you're clearly seeing that the younger demographic is definitely more, is in line with President Trump's agenda a lot more than in years past. View of Trump's early actions. Trump's most popular policy remains mass deportations. Similar to our pre-election poll, voters support the deportation of all illegal immigrants living in America by an 18-point margin, which is like pretty astounding. But you see here, however, the country is sharply divided on some of the most, more controversial actions, supporting birthright citizenship by 17. So the idea that an illegal can have kids here and then become an American citizen is still supported by the country by 17%. Now, of course, that executive order by President Trump is going to be going to the courts, especially the Supreme Court. They will make the final determination as to how they're going to interpret the 14th Amendment, which in my case, I actually don't think that was meant for illegals to just come here and have children, because at the time, I don't really think the founding fathers or people who actually wrote this amendment would have exactly understood the possibility or even thought of a president wanting millions of unauthorized illegal citizens coming into the country. So the debate about that is going to be rolling around as the case gets brought up to the courts. But we see here about roughly, give or take, Trump's pardons of January 6th protesters is disapproved of by 7% nationwide, which is actually not as bad as I thought it was, by the way. That was actually pretty good. And even after he did the J6 pardons, he still came out like plus 13 favorable, by the way. So this is post all his major executive orders, which is insane. And you even see voters nearly give Trump credit for the Israel-Palestine ceasefire over Biden by 37 to 34. And this is the big thing, guys. Young voters continuing their sharp rightward trend. The 18 to 29 age block appears to be Trump's strongest. 18 to 29-year-olds approve of Trump's presidency by the widest margin of any age group. So go ahead and look. Let's look at the Google Sheets of the poll here. This is really interesting, but it is absolutely insane how much better he's actually performing. He is up 13 points nationwide in his job approval, only down 1 point with female voters. You could see it right there in the second major column where it says gender. 41% disapprove with 40% approve. That is a pretty good margin, especially for somebody like Trump, who's consistently not performed well with that demographic. His personal favorability is +2, and there is a difference between approval and favorable ratings. A lot of people, when they do electoral politics analysis, don't really understand that. So there is a major difference between the two. Favorable rating is basically just describing the actual person themselves. Job approval means how have they done the job as president? Do you approve of how they do that job? But when you actually look at voter patterns, it seems like recently, the past 20, 30 years, more people vote alongside the job approval as opposed to the favorable or unfavorable rating. So that is something to keep in mind, guys. More people go off the job approval ratings than they even do the favorable ratings when voting for the most part. The job approval ratings are a lot more predictive than what most people actually think they are. And we see JD Vance is up 37% favorable to 36% with a lot of unsures. Again, there's a large section of the electorate who doesn't know who he is. There's a lot of people that may be unfamiliar with his story. And a lot of people are starting to get to know him. He actually is positive favorable with 18 to 29-year-olds, despite him being, about a third of the country still doesn't have an opinion about him, according to this survey. Kamala Harris, this is the interesting thing. She's at about 42% favorable. She was at about like 47, 48 in November, and she's dropped like 5 or 6 points from our last poll. We had Harris at like 47, 48% in favorable, and she got about 48% of the popular vote, and now she's stuck at like 42%, which means there's about roughly 5 to 6% of her voters just straight up after they voted for her and she lost, they just don't like her anymore, and they're either in the unfavorable column or they're in the unsure column, which is not really a great sign for her, because usually when you see voters move from a certain point to another, it's not really great. And Gavin Newsom, who's, according to this, he is actually the betting odds favorite, according to Calshi.com, to become the Democrat nominee. He has a 26% favorable rating nationwide, yet unfavorable is the same amount as JD Vance, meaning less people know Gavin Newsom, but he is still just as approved of as JD Vance, which is not good for Gavin because there are a lot more unsures for him than JD Vance, and that is hypothetically could actually be the matchup going into 2028. And even now at this early stage where both candidates still need to pick up a lot of name recognition, JD Vance is significantly ahead of the potential frontrunner for the 2028 nomination for the Democrats. He's well ahead of Gavin Newsom in favorability rating. He would absolutely smoke Gavin Newsom in a general election. This basically points to a 350 to 400 electoral college vote landslide for JD Vance, according to these numbers. We actually tested Bernie Sanders. If you could actually scroll down a little bit, I think you're following here. Bernie Sanders is actually at a 42% favorable rating, which is just as good as Kamala, but yet his unfavorable is significantly lower. He's approved of by a lot of 18 to 29-year-olds, and his worst demographic is actually 65 plus, which is interesting, but he's still net positive with them. So it's really interesting because all of the age groups have kind of depolarized, meaning no age group really supports a party or certain candidates more than others anymore. It seems like all politicians right now in general are just approved of more by these kind of voters, younger voters, than even so older voters. I think Kamala is the only one who differentiates here, where Kamala is the one who's more approved of by older voters than his younger voters, which usually isn't the case. And that's why you got really weird swings this cycle. We see here about 50% of U.S. registered voters here from our sample approve of mass deportations. Do you think children of illegal immigrants born in the United States should be granted automatic citizenship? 50% say yes, 33% say no. So the same amount of people who support mass deportations say that people who were born here with illegal immigrant parents should be able to stay, which is kind of interesting that there is a little bit of a crossover support there. Donald Trump receives more credit for the Israel-Hamas ceasefire than Joe Biden by 4 points. Generally speaking, how do you think the United States is in the right track, wrong track? Still right track, 35%, wrong track, 49%. Does the Democratic Party pander too much to racial minorities? 34% say yes, 40% say no, and 25% are kind of unsure, which honestly, I don't think that the unsure margin of shares should even be that high. I really don't think it is. But I'm going to go ahead and mention something now really, really quick. Come back to camera one. So this has been a pretty insane journey for Donald Trump. Back in 2016, all of the youth vote was super against him. He didn't do well with youth voters at all. Did better than Mitt Romney as a Republican. But from then till now, he has had an incredible journey with Gen Z voters. President Trump has appealed to these voters this cycle like no Republican or even Democrats have even done in a while. And this is something I want to talk about. Donald Trump made gains with Gen Z voters unlike ever before. Again, I'll reiterate what was said here. Young voters continuing their sharp rightward trend. The 18 to 29 age block appears to be Trump's strongest group. 18 to 29-year-olds approve of Trump's presidency by the widest margin of any age group. So more than, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50, 60. 18 to 29-year-old voters, the Gen Z voting bloc that many like Charlie Kirk, Scott Presler, Bo Loudon, all these people have been talking about them. It worked. TPUSA worked. Early Vote Action worked. Bo Loudon's posts have been working. And most of all, guys, the biggest factor was this. And I'm going to go ahead and have you play the clip on X. Go ahead and switch to a cut 4.
A tall son named Barron. Has anyone ever heard of him? Thank you. He knew the youth vote. We won the youth vote by 36 points. And he was saying, Dad, you got to go out and do this one and that one. And we did a lot of them. And he respects them all. He understood them very well. And he said, Dad, you got to go out, do Joe Rogan, do all these guys. And we did. We did. And Joe Rogan was great. They were all great, right? Aaron, they were all good. He understood the market. Another famous one. How about Kai?
So, guys, this was the most important factor for the Gen Z vote this cycle. Barron Trump gave counsel to his father, President Trump, like no one's ever seen before. People were concerned that Trump skipping a lot of traditional media interviews was going to be a bad thing. And what happened is they had J.D. Vance tackle that with his, tact, his sharp speaking skills, master at debating. They sent him to the gulag with the mainstream media. But President Trump went ahead on the advice of Barron Trump and basically went on a bunch of friendly podcasts, would do unscripted conversations. Barron also advocated for behind the scenes content. He did a lot of things and advised Trump in a way that was able to help him reach out to that group of 18 to 29-year-old voters. And the biggest thing with them was the economy and being able to afford a home. A lot of people our age, specifically my age, I'm only 20, we don't know if we're going to be able to afford a home. Now, luckily with President Trump, we'll see what happens. And, I'd assume things will get better. But with the Biden administration and Harris running in, a lot of people were concerned that that wasn't going to be in the case anymore. And that's why Gen Z had such a hard rightward shift, was because of the economy. Illegal immigration was also a big problem as well. And funny enough, even DEI, in my opinion, that whole woke culture, I think with a lot of new, especially like 18 to like 22-year-olds nowadays, that stuff actually really doesn't fly. The more liberal Gen Z voting bloc is actually like 25 to 29-year-olds. A lot of the new 18 to 22-year-olds actually tend to skew a lot more Republican overall. And that's why you saw such big gains for Trump in the cities and such big declines for Democrats in some of these major urban areas, because all the young voters just either didn't vote or just switched to being Republican voters in the general election. And so, again, guys, Turning Point Action, Turning Point USA by Charlie Kirk. Charlie going to these college campuses made a huge difference in 2024. It influenced so many people to get involved, register voters, really rethink their positions. Scott Presler chasing ballots in Pennsylvania, any little crook and cranny in the state really helped Trump get that 270 with North Carolina and Georgia and Alaska. Bo Loudon continuously making posts about Gen Z supporting Trump definitely spread the message as well. But Barron giving counsel to President Trump about doing podcasts, having more unscripted moments, really embracing the raw authenticity of the campaign definitely helped Trump at the stretch of it and helped him defeat Kamala Harris, who was backed by a bunch of, tech millionaires and billionaires, essentially. All right, guys, make sure to go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you want more content just like this, I will leave a link in the description down below for the GoFundMe fundraising for new polling like this, as well as my Substack, and to follow me on X as well. I will see you guys in the next video.